Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another super cool Paleo Revived figure, and as you can see, we actually have 4 of them here in front of us. This is the Coelophysis, and man, am I happy to see this one in the Paleo Revived line. If there's one dinosaur species that dates back to the old Jurassic Park toys, and it's a species that you did not really see ever get love again, it is the Coelophysis. The old school Coelophysis from Jurassic Park's toy line were some of my favorite JP toys that I remember, and is a species you really just don't see get figures in general, like not even just in the Jurassic Park toy line. You really don't see many companies ever take a chance on this species, so it's super cool to have one here from Paleo Revived and Dino Mike Mac. Now, as you can see, and as I've already mentioned, I have 4 different versions here in front of me. 2 of them are basically just painted up to be super flashy, and I would think if you are familiar with the series, you're probably going to recognize where I got the inspiration from for the coloration of those figures, and that would be from Walking with Dinosaurs. I tried to give my best shot at making one of the, well, 2 of the Walking with Dinosaurs Coelophysis, making them look a little bit different from each other, but these 2, unless again you are a fan of the old school Jurassic Park toys, you may not instantly notice where these ones are from, or at least my inspiration for the coloration of these figures. I got the inspiration from these from this card right here, which is the card that came with the Coelophysis, and again had quite a few different variants of the Coelophysis in there, so I went ahead and basically gave it my best attempt at kind of recreating coloration that's fairly reminiscent to what you see on that card, and I felt like it was just a really fun idea and turned out pretty nicely with my Coelophysis. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move these guys out of the way entirely, just so they're not a distraction in the background for my camera. Now, I've chosen to go with this one for my closer look because the coloration on the Coelophysis on the card, again from Kenner, it's not like it's a super flashy coloration. They're not overly detailed in the colors that they have, so it's something that's simplistic enough that you can still see the detail. And you'll see once I bring the Walking with Dinosaurs versions in, there's just way too much when it comes to patterning and stuff on those figures, I think, to truly appreciate the detail. But you can see the head sculpt looks really nice on the Coelophysis. You've got, again, the nostrils sculpted out up there. You have the eyes sculpted out and some very nice looking skin texture. You can also see the dinosaur is sculpted with its mouth in an open position. We can see the tongue on the inside of the mouth, if my camera focuses correctly on it, and of course all of the teeth sculpted out and everything in there, painted of course by me. But again, it is one thing that's, when it comes to those, Jurassic Park Coelophysis, they have that kind of brighter coloration here in the face. Now I feel like on the card it's a little bit too bright and not so realistic, so I tried to give it that look in my opinion, a little bit more of a realistic way when it comes to this one. But that head sculpt looks really nice. Definitely, again, nice work, as always, on the part of Dino Mike Mac. As you begin to lead down into the neck, you can see the throat on the underside is very nicely sculpted out. You can also see, again, that the skin texture up here on the back of the neck of the dinosaur also looks really quite nice. As you lead down, you, of course, have that nice, slender, long neck for our Coelophysis. As you lead down, you can see the skin texture continues to look great here in the body. Again, I have given this a nice dark tone that allows the detail, in my opinion, to shine a little nicer, kind of creeping through all of the coloration of the figure. You can see the shoulder blade protruding right there, and as you move down into the hands of the Coelophysis, you can see they look pretty good. You've got the arms sculpted nicely with a little bit of muscle definition, but not overly defined. The fingers as well, sculpted quite nicely, as are the claws of the hands. And as you move down to the underside, again, you continue to see the detail looks really good. You've got a little bit of girth there in the stomach region for our Coelophysis, looking again nice and healthy. As you move back, and as I let the light hit it, you can kind of make out the hip bone right there. We can see the spinal column following along the back of the dinosaur. We also see, again, more impressive muscle definition moving down through the thigh, but not overly defined by any means. We've got the kneecap right there. You can see a nice little calf muscle, definitely giving it that kind of sleek and slender look you would expect to see for a Coelophysis. And then as you move down, you've got a really nice looking bird-like foot sculpt, of course, for our Coelophysis. You can see the nails, again, sculpted quite nicely. We do have dew claws and everything as you lead down there. And then as you lead out into the tail, you have a super straight out, look for the tail. And the Dinosaur, for the most part, unless you get like the articulated versions, a lot of the Paleo Revived figures are usually pretty much like almost like maquettes because they're in a very neutral position, and you can see that is the same case for the Coelophysis, but you can see that tail has some extraordinary length to it. Definitely a very long tail, kind of, again, exactly what you would expect for a Coelophysis, and of course when you turn it around, it's going to pretty much look the same from both sides as far as the detail and everything goes. But this, again, the paintwork I think turned out pretty decent as far as the way that the Coelophysis on the card looks. I just tried to make it look a little bit more realistic. Now, I will say one slight downside for these figures, although they look absolutely fantastic in this pose, unfortunately, because the tail is so long, they do kind of fall back onto the tail. So that's the best way to stand it up unless you have something to kind of prop behind it. And then, of course, the Coelophysis will definitely stand up quite nice because that tail, again, is so long. But I would much rather the Dinosaur kind of fall back onto its tail rather than it have like a shorter than it needs tail. I would definitely prefer the proportions to be accurate, and I feel like he's done a great job as far as really creating a very nice looking Coelophysis proportion wise. You can also see that I have this version, which I did give a little bit of a brighter coloration to in the face of this one because I went a little bit closer to what you see on the card with this one. I also gave the coloration a little bit of a different look compared to the other one, as there are kind of more brownish ones, there's more reddish ones. You see lots of variation to the colors of the Coelophysis on the card, and if you look at the two, you can see a little bit more of a reddish look for this one and more of a brownish look for this one. So I did try to, again, give it a little bit of a different look compared to the other one. But of course, the sculpt of all of these figures is the same. There's not going to be any difference between one Coelophysis to the other, just, again, different colorations that I've given them, and I just kind of wanted to show that off to you guys, and of course have all of them here together just to show you how cool it looks to have a actual group. And what else is cool about the Coelophysis is, again, it's only $8 for one of these guys. So that's one of the most, in my opinion, exciting aspects of the Paleo Revived figures, is the fact that, again, they're not expensive, which is so nice to see. But then we also have this version, which, as you can see, and now it's not going to focus, there we go, as you can see, is much more so based on the Walking with Dinosaurs design, which these guys, man, they take a long time to paint because the coloration and paint scheme is just so intricate on those Coelophysis. It takes quite a long time to really finish off one of these figures, and I painted two of them, so it took really long for me to get these two guys done, but they do look really cool. I've always been a big fan of the coloration of the Coelophysis from Walking with Dinosaurs, and since there are so few Coelophysis figures out, it's always been something I've wanted to try painting, but never had the opportunity to, because I never really found any good Coelophysis figures to kind of attempt that. So it is nice to really have this version from the Paleo Revived line for many reasons, but of course that's one reason that I was really excited about specifically, is the fact that I had the opportunity to give it the Walking with Dinosaurs color scheme. And I did try to make the two of them look a little bit different. This one just has a little bit less patterning. This one I went a little crazy with when it comes to the patterning and really over patterned this one just to kind of give it a little bit of a different look, again, compared to the other one that we have over there. The first version that I had up here. But you can see, again, they look super cool. Whether you go for the Jurassic Park look or whether you go for the Walking with Dinosaurs look, they are absolutely awesome Coelophysis figures. So happy that, like I said, Paleo Revived have actually given us some Coelophysis. It is that one species from the Jurassic Park toy line that just seems to have always been ignored ever since. So for a length on our Coelophysis, you are looking at from the end of the tail to the snout, a little hair over 8.5 inches, or around 22 centimeters. And then for a height, if we actually stand it up in a more natural position, you're looking at right around 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimeters. But if we leave it lay back on its tail like it stands kind of naturally, just a hair under 3.25 inches, or a little over 8 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Coelophysis, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Coelophysis from Paleo Revived, and you can see they are pretty darn nicely sized. I would say roughly in like the Attack Pack, Danger Pack size range, but with much more accurate proportions, which is definitely a great thing. And for another size comparison to further show you that, there is a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to our Coelophysis, helping to again show you that they are in that size range, again roughly in like the Danger Pack, Attack Pack, or even Strike Attack size range, maybe even a little bit smaller, because you can see again they are just slightly smaller than you get with a Velociraptor or Dilophosaurus. But again, that's mostly due to the fact that these have much more accurate proportions, like the bodies aren't overly thick or anything, and the feet aren't huge, nothing like that. So definitely, again, in this size range, but not quite as awkward as far as like the proportions go. And then for one more size comparison, we have the original Kenner Coelophysis right here. You can see I do have them in box, and we can obviously see that these Coelophysis from Dino Mike Mac are actually quite similar in size to the older Kenner version. You can see very, very similar, maybe just a little bit bigger, but not by a whole lot. So these Dino Mike Mac Paleo Revived Coelophysis are so cool. Definitely a really nice addition to this line. And as I stated in my Baryonyx review, I feel like these figures are just getting better and better as we go. Like the sculpts and everything just seem even more accurate, even more detailed, and just generally better looking as a whole than the first round. And the first round was really nice. I actually really loved those figures, but I just feel like somehow Dino Mike Mac finds a way to consistently improve his products, and has done so even here with these figures. And I think, again, when it comes to that Jurassic Park style Coelophysis, they've absolutely nailed it. I feel like it looks pretty much exactly as I would expect it to look in Jurassic Park. And of course, looking quite similar, sort of, to the version from Walking with Dinosaurs, though the version from Walking with Dinosaurs is like super, super thin, so maybe it's not quite as thin as you see in the Walking with Dinosaurs version, but either way, it does make a really cool Walking with Dinosaurs repaint for sure. But again, you can see sculpt-wise, they look great, really nice fine detail, that nice kind of standard sort of neutral pose that we get for a lot of the Paleo Revived figures, which again gives it that kind of maquette sort of a look, which I am actually a pretty big fan of. I do really love that maquette look. And again, the fact that they are only $8 a piece means you can get yourself an entire swarm, an entire flock of Coelophysis without having to spend $1 million. So that is also a huge plus. So if you are interested in picking these up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that, again, through Dino Mike Mac. So make sure you check out the official Dino Mike Mac store, grab yourself some of these or any of the other awesome Paleo Revived figures, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.